Doctor, I was going to say one problem you point out with the underclass is that there's no culture, that the lack of culture, and of course one problem we have is that there are some good aspects to it as well as that the emergence of popular culture, and not all popular culture is bad. I mean, just as in Britain there's Channel 4 and television, here we have some very good television as well, but we also have a lot of bad television. So what would you say to, how to, to our dilemma here, where there's some good popular entertainment and there's a lot of bad popular entertainment, and not only are underclasses sucked into that mode of wasting of time, but being entertained, but how can we be uplifted and...
Well, I think the good entertainment isn't popular, and the popular entertainment isn't good. Certainly, I mean, the BBC did have there was the famous Director General, Lord Reith, had the idea that the object of broadcasting was to make the popular good and the good popular. But there certainly is there's no feeling of that now in the BBC or anywhere else. One of the things that has happened in Britain, as I said, is that people are radically disconnected from their past, or from the past of the country in which they live. To such an extent, as I've suggested to you, that the vast majority of people don't even know when the Second World War was. I mean, out of hundreds of 16 to 20-year-old patients whom I've seen, very few, in fact I think about 3, have known with any degree of accuracy when the Second World War took place, and they're not even capable of deducing from the fact that there was a Second World War that there was a First World War. And in the circumstances, I regard it as a triumph when they tell me that the Second World War took place in the 18th century, because that means that they know that there was another century. And quite often, if I ask them anything about history, not just of their own country, but of the entire world, what they say is, I don't know, because I wasn't born then. As if one could not be expected to know anything other than by personal acquaintance. And our educators, I think, have a lot to answer for, because they have suggested that education should be of relevance to the children's lives as it is lived. And of course, the whole point of education is to make the world beyond that relevant and of course interesting and important to them. Otherwise they are utterly enclosed in the indescribably miserable world in which they find themselves.
Do they read the tabloid press? Do they read the tabloid press at all, these people?
Yes, they do, in large. For example, The Sun, I believe, has a circulation of about 4 million, or maybe even at one time it might have been 5 million. But reading is perhaps a rather strong word for, for the activity of looking at it.
Doctor, a question. Throughout history, people have looked up to role models. You could argue about a role model, but they looked up to role models. Modern culture seems to look down for role models. Now, somebody must benefit from that, otherwise it couldn't happen.
I suppose it's financially advantageous for those who are producing the products of popular culture. I can't see it as beneficial in any way, because I don't value what is being propagated. But to give you a very graphic example, my own father was born in the slums of London, at a time when there were actually barefoot children. Now, his first memory is of the Zeppelins coming, or was, I should say, he's now dead, of the Zeppelins coming over London. And there was simply no question in the school that the object of education was to teach him as much as he could possibly learn, and because he was a highly intelligent person, he was actually taught a great deal. And when I look at his school books, they are more exacting than anybody's school books now. And this is in a slum in London in I think they come from about 1919. I mean, he was expected to know, for example, all about the Holy Roman Emperors. Well, I don't know how many people here would know about the Holy Roman Emperors, but he was taught German, he was taught Latin, he was taught French. There was no condescension towards him. There was no feeling that because he was poor he must be an idiot. And it was quite clear that my father very rarely spoke highly of anybody, but he did speak very highly of. He never spoke other than with the deepest respect of his teachers, many of whom were military men who devoted their weekends often to taking them to concerts in London, to taking them to the museums. They had no question of what represented a higher life. And if we look at our recent prime ministers, Mrs. Thatcher, for example, took elocution lessons to learn to speak. As you know, in England, accent tells you a great deal about a person's social status, to sound as if she was a member of the upper middle class. Mr. Blair, who is actually a member by birth of the upper middle class, now imitates the speech. Sometimes he doesn't do it very well. And then, well, we won't go into what I think of that. He now imitates the speech of people below him in the social scale.
I think we have time for one more question.
First of all, I'd like to say... First, I'd like to mention, I'm not worried about this because my daughter does know all those things that you were talking about. No, I'm just kidding. When you said it, we talked about the person who didn't know 3 times 4, and he said we hadn't gotten that far. It led to, I just had the impression the person might have been putting you on. And did you verify the information that you've gotten, with kind of a scientific research, or?
I think it's perfectly obvious if you go into a British shop and are served by a person at the till. The most elementary arithmetic is beyond them. I'm not quite sure how scientific you could be about this, but it seems to me perfectly clear that the phenomena that I describe exist. I can't see why anybody would actually... they don't mind me asking them. It's not that they object. And my reading tests, for example, that I give some patients, I just give them a little something to read, 90% of the people, of the children in my area cannot read with facility. They can stumble through words, but when asked at the end of it, what did it mean, they say, I don't know, I was only reading it. As if it were some kind of ceremony to propitiate it. Nothing enters, it's as if their faces were a screen and nothing has gone beyond that screen. And I can't see why anybody would actually fake that for me. Why would someone wish to fake being semi-literate? I don't think they do.